And we're live.
Ooh,
I
hello.
think uh hopefully YouTube is being a little weird right now. And so I'm really hoping that this is working. But yes, hello. Hi. Welcome to the stream. I am joined by a amazing guest, a friend of mine for a long time, Impr0phet.
Hello. That's me. I'm a prophet. Okay, it's weird because I'm watching the YouTube video and it's delayed, and the little
Oh
green
yeah.
circle's not matching my green circles. I'm gonna close that for right now, or just look away.
Yeah. YouTube has about a minute-ish delay. So
Gotcha.
it's a
I'm-
fun, balance to walk of monitoring chat and, like, responding to everything, at the same
cool.
time remembering you're a minute behind.
So I'm scrolled down right now, looking at the chat and not the video because that will confuse me. Hi, I'm in Prophet, also known as Josh.
So, yes, and Prophet is an amazing, I would say, homebrew, third party, we'll get into it,
Oh, we're getting
uh,
into that.
Pathfinder 2e content creator. I am just so glad to have them with us today. I've talked with Prophet before. I've seen their work all over, even way before I was on Deadly D8. And yeah, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing quite well. I actually just got back from working a little bit on some relics that I'm making. That's very exciting.
Ooh, can't wait
Yeah,
to see those drop.
those are probably not going to come out into public for like probably about 3 weeks. I think. I'm so the only way you can reasonably post things every day is by having a big backlog.
So do you like write? I would say about like a month's catalog ahead of time, and then slowly
I,
drop it, or what's kind of like
yeah,
your kind of mythology going into it?
Yes. So when I first started, I was definitely making it every day, and I quickly found that I might not have time every day to make it. So I started, making two a day or a little bit more than that, and just building up a backlog of it. At any given time, I'm normally about 2 weeks ahead of schedule for posting like a feat a day or an item a day or something along that lines. Um, and I really like posting daily. Because one of my biggest inspirations was actually Griffith Saddlebag, who used to post an item for back when I was playing fifth edition. I used to post a magic item for fifth edition every single day on Reddit, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" It gave me something to look forward to every day I'd log on. So I just wanted to do something like that for Pathfinder, and of course I started with weapons and items, and eventually moved over to all sorts of stuff. I have a large catalog of public homebrew now.
It's really interesting because when I was like learning how to homebrew, I started off with actually ancestries because I found writing ancestry feats were because I think in 2e they're so, I guess, simplified. Like they're not like overly complex like class feats can be.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I would say that's actually one of the hardest things for a new home brewer to do is to make something that's not very powerful. Because everyone wants to make cool stuff, and cool stuff is great, and it's always great to make cool things. But you also have to make something cool while also not making something ridiculous. It's all about
Yeah.
the balancing it.
And I think 2e just kind of like bouncing off of that is such a great, I guess, it has this great structure to it, this skeleton that like making, I would say, mediocre feats still feel like they're impactful for your character. And
Yeah.
like you said, everybody wants that big plus 50 bonus damage on a feat.
The interesting thing that I think Pathfinder brings out of creators is that you cannot touch the numbers. Like, you can't really touch the numbers, and if you're touching the numbers, you're breaking the game in some way. So the numbers are kind of off limit to touch, but what that does is it forces you to come up with more creative solutions of things that make that are interesting.
So let me ask you this then. What was a particular like bit of homebrew that you worked on that forced you to be slightly more creative instead of, like here's your +1 sword. What was your like kind of, here is X problem, I solved it with like X solution.
Um, yeah, like I started with weapons. weapons are all about damage. But and like I started with my biggest project I ever made. Actually, it was a set of 87 weapons, and it's hard to like go back and find like any particular one that was a particular challenge. But it's the whole project itself was a big challenge because I wanted to make a weapon for every weapon type that didn't have a specific weapon, which is a really like long-winded project to do.
Oh
And
yeah.
there's so many weapons in second edition. But yeah, if you wanted to be like a scythe user, there wasn't any cool magic scythe for you to go out and find. So I wanted to make a cool magic scythe for you to go out and find for your scythe wielding fighter. Um, and it was, it having to make an enticing weapon that doesn't just like do more damage than another weapon because having ran a large server for such a long time, I used to moderate rules for a rather large fifth edition server. It was a West Run style server, and I was in charge of moderating the homebrew content that got allowed there, and I got to see all the different 5e builds people would make. But yeah, it's it came as a unique and interesting way to make a strictly damaging item do more than just damage in fun and unique ways. I think the trickiest one on there, the one that took me the most time and the most revisions, is the one I'm also the most proud of, and one of the ones I like the most. And if I scroll back up, I want to make sure I get the name right because it's kind of a tricky name. Do, 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 do. It's the alchemical crossbow. Let me call. There we go. The model 87B, which is like the tricky thing with the alchemical crossbow was it was already such a complicated weapon. Um, and
Hmm.
yeah, so I came up with the idea of like this weapon has a cartridge in it that every time you load a bomb into it, it starts building up and having some residual cartridge that at one time, once it builds up enough charges, you can take out the cartridge and it has so much residual energy you can throw the cartridge itself as a big bomb.
That's super cool. And I really think that, like you said, TUI lends itself a lot to this ability to like work within the skeleton so well, so you can do something like that. Also, hello everyone joining us. I'm glad to see you're here. Um, Before we get further into the little bit more structured part of the stream, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at World Anvil. World Anvil is an online interactive tool that helps GMs like myself go crazy with lore, centralized all the work into one place. I know because I have very thick binders filled with tons of lore for all the different campaign settings that I have worked on. And it's this great tool that helps keep everything into one cohesive system. I really like using it to track all my timelines, especially when it comes to campaigns, because a lot of players forget what happens from every session, and I find that right after a session, writing up a quick little ditty on what happened is a great way of referencing old bits in the campaign. After all, players forget things quite often. It's an amazing resource where you can track maps, NPCs, kingdoms, locations, and so much more. I really hope you check it out because it's got so much to offer in one very, very convenient place. So check out World Anvil. They're honestly amazing, and I love that we get to work with them. All right, so when we were talking about what today's stream was going to look like, we started talking a little bit about this interesting philosophy that we wanted to save for when camera was rolling. So, what exactly is Homebrew? Because this is where we started having this really interesting conversation, and then we were like, no, we gotta save this for later.
Yeah. So I want to start this by asking you, what game do you think is most often homebrewed?
Like game as in like
Any
TTRPG,
kind of game.
I would say 5e probably. It's
Yeah,
the
I think
biggest.
I think you're wrong there. I think, and I don't have any evidence to support this, but I think the most homebrewed game is either going to be Monopoly or Uno.
Interesting. Okay, please continue on with this then.
Because all a homebrew is you taking a game with existing rules and modifying those rules to better fit your experience.
Hmm.
And I've never once played a game of Monopoly or Uno by the rules that are in the box.
I think you're right because I think most people just throw out the rules. They're like, we could stack numbers. We can, Oh, I could
Hmm.
totally see that. Or how
Yeah.
go to jail and pass what free parking is like the most contentious rules in all Monopoly.
Now, this also brings us to the idea of another term that we hear a lot, which is third-party content. Which I think is different than homebrew, but very in a very subtle way, and it's easy to miss. And I don't think there's anything wrong with calling someone who makes third-party content as making homebrew, but I think the difference is that homebrew is stuff that you make for your own games at home, whereas third-party content is something that you bring in from a third party into your home to play.
That's that's such an interesting philosophy because you can almost see third party as a form of homebrew because you're bringing it
Can
into
be. It's
your home
interesting because like
games.
when I make homebrew and I make it for my game, it is homebrew. But when I make homebrew and I post it on the internet, even if it's the same homebrew and someone else takes that homebrew and brings it into their own game, it was no longer brewed at home. It was they found it on the internet and it became their third party content that they're bringing into their home.
So would you define homebrew then as or like an ownership almost as homebrew is when you do it, it's contained, but when you release it out there, it's now third party because now it's like associated with you.
Um, the thing is, I think it can be both at the same time.
Interesting.
Like my homebrew is still my homebrew when I'm using it, but when other people use it, it's third party content. Like for instance, the Battles of Beastery, that's not official content, but you won't see anywhere in that book calling it homebrew. That's third party content.
I think a lot of people see the distinction between the two as one is like written by a publisher, it's formatted, it's all, it's
Sure, but
thrown in.
that's all just like that's all fluff in my opinion. Because like anyone can format anything and print it out on a book, even someone who doesn't plan on sending it out to anyone, just for their own home. It doesn't make it any more like you could say that that one might be a little bit more official because it was actually like looked at by official Paizo creators. But like Nonat's book isn't looked at by official creators, but that's still going to be third party content. I'm going to be writing in that
Interesting.
book.
You are? Oh boy.
Yeah,
Cannot wait to see what you put in there. If you
I'm
guys don't
pretty.
know already, Impr0phet is an amazing, or I guess we can now call it third party content. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I could totally see like the distinction that you're pulling in here. So then let's focus this a little bit more narrowly. What does homebrew or third-party creations look like
We can just call it
specifically
homebrew
for
for
2e?
simplicity.
Yeah, okay, so let's just call it homebrew. So what does
Yeah,
homebrew look like when it comes to second edition itself? Because me and you, we write a lot of homebrew. Like, this
yeah,
is kind of what we're both a little bit known for.
yeah. So it's just like any other game. There are things established in the game, and homebrew is anything that modifies anything that's already in the game or adds to it, or even in some cases takes it away. Like removing a rule would be homebrewing Pathfinder Second Edition. The homebrew that like you and I think particularly make are we make our own guidelines and to it, as in we almost work within the restrictions of trying to make it balanced and the appearance that it would be officially published, which is one way to create homebrew. It's not the right way to create homebrew, but it's the way that we decided to do it because if we're presenting it, it looks professional and it's easy to implement. It's easy to visualize and see. But like just scratching down a note on a piece of paper and handing it to a player is like, hey, this is your new item. That's just as much homebrew as what we do. We just we add the fuzz and the finesse that make it look official, which comes from lots of time studying the official text and trying our best to emulate it.
Yeah, I definitely think like, I think that what you and I do is and obviously correct me if I'm wrong here, but I spent a lot of time reading like the core rulebook back and forth. I've read the Game Master's Guide book cover to cover at times, and we understand like I I would say the formatting of like Paizo text a
Yeah.
little bit more than like here's a scratch on a paper.
Oh, the formatting of Hydro Tech is like learning a new language. it's not something that's intuitive all the time. It's better than 5e sometimes, most of the time, but it's learning the language of the developers of the game. It's like us trying to like it's almost like trying to copy handwriting. Um,
It's one of those copy my homework, but like try to
yeah,
make it look a little different.
yes, exactly, and it's a really fun challenge, and I really like it. It's like a puzzle. Like I want this to happen. How can I make this happen within like the text format I'm allowed to do with the least amount of words possible? Because you never want to make like a rule be like a paragraph long.
Oh yeah, I definitely think when I've gone to like approaching rules when I've looked at the text when I was done and like someone sees this is really wrong.
Yeah, but
And
but it's also like it's not wrong though
mhm,
because we're only looking at it through the context that how we created and we're creating it for like professionality, but not everyone makes homebrew for that reason. Some people just make homebrew for playing their games, and in that case you can just write like it however you want that makes sense to the people, and you can even like say, hey, this and explain it a little bit. Like homebrew doesn't need to be as restrictive as the way that we do it.
mhm. I think a great example of like one of these like rules that kind of are not like what me and you do where we add all the fluff and stuff to
Yeah.
it. I play in a home game, and one of the homebrew rules that we run with is the free archetype system. You get the dedication at first level instead of second level, so
Super
you
cool.
could start off your theme a little bit quicker. Which, to
Yeah.
be fair, I really like this home rule, and I've ruled with it for like quite a. I would say when I start up my next campaign, I'm gonna run with it.
Mhm. Yeah. It's all it's hard for me to give an example because I'm so stuck in the mindset of doing it officially. It's hard for me to just give like a intentionally bad example of something, but it's like yeah, all that is completely valid for what homebrew is, and like what I'm trying to get at this is like if you want to work for Paizo or make a or get make into a book, you kind of have to copy their way of doing it, but that's not really what homebrew needs to be. And
Hmm.
the most homebrew, in fact, isn't that because every single game of Pathfinder, I assume, has some. I don't, except for maybe Pathfinder Society. It's hard to imagine someone playing 100% by the book all the time.
Oh, I think, I mean, no offense over to the Paizo devs.
Yeah.
I think there are definitely some rules where I've just gone, I'm just gonna change things around a little bit
Oh,
here.
yeah. I mean that's like the first rule of the game is you can change the game to be whatever you want.
Oh
I mean
yeah.
the yeah. I mean even like board games I have we occasionally will change the rules to the better fit the experience we're trying to have with it. And yeah. But yeah, but homebrew doesn't have to be some what I'm getting at is it doesn't have to be some grandiose thing where you spend hours of hours studying Paizo's text philosophy and copying down their formatting. It doesn't need to be that.
Would you would you say that, with time as you've written more, you
Yeah.
start to have like this deeper understanding of game design within the TTRPG sphere? Like when
Oh,
we
100%.
yeah, because I was about to just like I was thinking like when we would approach, let's say, D&D 5th edition or even Pathfinder 1st edition, we both obviously correct me, but we both kind of now have this like deeper understanding about like how game design looks and appears.
Yes. And yeah, a game of like making like lots of interesting homebrew and like and lots of stuff like how we do interest you. The number one thing I would recommend is look at other games. One of the biggest games I look to inspiration whenever I'm hitting a wall is I don't know if you've ever heard of a board game called Spirit Island.
I have not.
Oh, you gotta try out Spirit Island. It's fantastic, but I'm not gonna get on a tangent how great that game is design wise. It is the best design board game I've ever played. Um, but yeah, and like I just look for inspiration through other games, and in fact, I learned how to design things. My biggest philosophy actually comes from Magic the Gathering, which is where I learned about designing in a box through an interview about the Innistrad format of Magic the Gathering. Are you familiar with Magic the Gathering at all?
I am well aware of it. I stopped
Yeah,
playing it a
okay.
while ago when my budget ran short.
Yep, it's expensive. I yeah, but the philosophy of designing the box came from there, and it's a term that gets like tossed out around a lot, but it basically amounts down to I can sum it up to you in a simple like series of questions like hey, think of anything at all.
Now? Okay.
Yeah, right now, anything.
Okay.
You
Uh, I'm thinking about Superman. I don't know why. I've been watching a lot of DC movies.
yeah, but it almost is like it's hard to fixate on anything because like
Yeah.
now think of a gothic horror monster.
Okay. So something a little bit more along the lines of like Cthulhu-esque, fish
Yeah,
personed.
sure. But are you coming up with like a lot more things when you
Yeah,
have
it's
that restriction?
definitely yeah. I
Yeah, it's like as soon as you put restrictions on it, it allows your mind to like because that's how the brain works. The brain isn't like a large list of collections of things. It's connections, and the more connections that you have, the more like triggers you can build off of like the branching trees. Like if you just start with like a forest, then you're gonna be like, there's too many trees here to see anything. But if you start with like the base of a tree, then you can see all the branches coming off from it, and all the ideas are right there.
That's so interesting because I've never heard of this until you just mentioned it, but I definitely think that when I'm approaching projects, having this very limited scope of I want to do this, but then I don't, it's not, here's like this overall grandiose picture. It's, I want archetypes, which limits it down to,
Yeah.
this format, which then limits it down to do I want it for, everybody or spellcasters or just marshals or a little bit of both?
uh and that brings us to top down design and bottom up design. Are you familiar with those terms at all?
Economically, yes, but design wise, no.
Okay. So you've played Magic before, right?
I have, yes.
I'm going to paint in your mind a picture of a Magic card. On a
Okay.
Magic card, you have the big picture kind of at the top. Above it, you have the name and how much it costs to do. And on the bottom, you have all the text that explains to you how the card works.
Hmm.
What top-down design is starting with the upper half of the card, either the picture or the name. Like you have the idea of what this thing is, like rampaging werewolf or fireball. And then once you have that idea, building the mechanics around that idea. Whereas bottom down design is you have a mechanical idea you want to build into the game. Like you say, I want a spell that does a big amount of AoE damage. And then you build from there what you want to make that reality to happen. So bottom down design is starting with the mechanical idea and building up into the aesthetic idea, and whereas top down is starting with the aesthetic idea and building into the mechanical idea of it.
That's so interesting because I didn't even think about it like that. I mean, obviously, I've definitely have touched it, and, like gone
Mhm.
in, like,
Oh
oh, I have
yeah,
this
it's
mechanical
things that you
idea.
do without thinking about it. But now you can think about it. It can like open up webs of how you want to proceed your work and how you want to approach it. Whereas like one of the most successful sets that Magic did, and I actually learned it from this interview where they talked about the set, was the set of Innistrad, which is a gothic horror set. And because they approached it from that really like top down design of like, we want this to be gothic horror, we want there to be a Frankenstein, zombies, werewolves, and then they built the set around the idea of wanting all these things on one world, and how would they interact with each other and proceed from there.
Okay, so now that we've kind of covered like the top-down design, let's start getting a little bit more, as you say, restrictive. Um,
Yes.
so in TUI, we can kind of classify different types of homebrew, or at least in my opinion, I think we can, as
Yeah.
what mechanic they're specifically touching. You have obviously the rules part of the mechanics, but then you have subclasses, classes, archetypes, equipment, spells, and overall
Yes.
feats.
Hmm.
So I think we should probably kind of start going down the list a little bit, talking about each of these mechanics. What does this mean for the game as a whole? What does this mean on somebody who's looking to, let's say, homebrew up a new XYZ, and like really start to like play with what we kind of do with of our I guess, imaginations every time we, you know, hit the paper with a new idea.
Yeah, yeah, let's go for it.
All right, cool. So then let's start with archetypes, because archetypes in TUI is this very, I would say, new concept to TTRPGs, at least from what I've seen in the fantasy genre sphere. Because not even Starfinder really has these like broad archetypes the way that TUI can encapsulate so much.
Yeah, it kind of does remind me of, I think the term, I'm gonna get this wrong. I think mythic classes or something, where like you almost jump into a new class partway through your leveling
Oh,
sequence.
prestige classes.
Prestige classes, yeah. That's what it kind of reminds me of, but you can do it alongside your normal class stuff. Well, I mean, I guess if you're not playing Feat archetype, it is in place of your normal class stuff. Um, but that's what it kind of reminds me of, is the prestige classing.
Yeah, I think. Well, one.
More open ended and more flexible. But I think the origins could have come from that.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, we all kind of just start running with free archetype at this point. I mean, it's so good.
Oh yeah, it just it makes a game as big as Pathfinder 2e, like with so many options. It's, you want to play them all, but the game takes forever to play. So you want to squeeze as much as you can out of every play session you can. And free archetype, lets you do that. It lets you basically play two things at once, which is nice because you get more juice for your squeeze.
Yeah, I think that's why I really love the archetype system as written. It like before we even like go in and start creating our own archetypes of you kind of have this like broad mini class that you just add to your character. Like for instance, my current sniper character has unexpected sharpshooter to it, and it really like fuels uh the design I had for him in game. And then obviously you have the little bit more. I got 50 archetypes into one character. Yeah.
No, I understand people do that, but I don't really. I consider White Room when which is making a min maxing a player in a white room and make them as optimal as possible. Uh, I consider it to like the least degree that I have to whenever I'm making homebrew. Um, it's just not a realistic way to play the game. It's not how people actually play the game 98% of the time. So I don't concern myself too much with like the maximum possible, this archetype plus this archetype plus this character plus this background with this magical item. I've seen a lot of that, like even in its best scenarios, and in that 5e server, like 1,000 players all trying to make characters. They don't come up as often as people think they do.
I think in 2 it's also a little bit harder because the math is so damn tight that we can,
I,
you know, it's a lot harder to make a bad character.
yeah. Well, it's a lot harder to make a really good character. It's not that hard to make a really messed up character.
I think it. I mean, I'm speaking more like
Yeah.
intentionally. Like I'm gonna drive it to the ground. Yeah, it's gonna be like you can
Yeah.
definitely
This
run
is
any
this is
build.
my warning. Is like, if you're gonna play an alchemist as your first character, get some help.
Yes,
Uh,
I
I
think.
love Alchemist. I will fight for it to the end. I think it's a perfectly balanced class as is. I
Mhm.
think it has the most potential for a new player to not have fun.
I think that just kind of comes with the whole. It's so broad. I think
Yeah,
that's
it
why.
gives you too many options.
I think. I mean, yes and no. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, yes, I agree with you in the fact that it gives a lot of options. But I
and a
think
lot of the
if
options.
you're if
Yeah.
you're very if you're an experienced GM or you're playing with an experienced GM, holding an alchemist hand and just say,
Yeah.
"What do you
Oh
want to
yeah.
do?" will really help.
Yeah. I'm not telling you don't play an alchemist as your first character. I would like, but don't do it by yourself.
I
Get
think that's
get.
kind of true for like any
Yeah.
class, though. I mean,
Yeah.
or specifically like the more utility-based ones, like
Mhm.
spellcasters. I would say,
Yeah.
with the amount of spells we now have at 2e, like
Yeah. It is like yeah. It's like, you don't want to play a caster then have someone pick uh Force Disc as both their first level spells. They're not gonna have fun. It's like, I can carry all these things. It's like, Yeah, but as soon as combat happens, you're gonna wish you had like magic missile or something.
Oh yeah.
Like
I
there's just a lot of like those early alchemist items that just don't do a lot. Especially if you don't know what's coming. And you think it's just so many options for. You're pretty good if you're just sticking with bombs. Like it's hard to mess up an alchemist who's just playing with bombs.
Mhm.
But like the big issue comes with when it comes to like the elixirs and the alchemical items that don't really give you any bonuses. Like, and you only have like such a small amount of slots in the first couple of levels. It can just get a little bit dicey if you don't have any kind of guidance at all.
So, kind of rearing back to
Yeah.
then.
Sorry about the tangent.
No, 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 no. Don't get me
uh,
wrong. I love alchemists to death. I love talking about
oh, I love them
alchemists.
so much. They're so
Um.
much fun.
So how does an archetype specifically in 2e written by a home brewer kind
Yes.
of help aid this like kind of process? Because I a lot of I would say new players see the archetype system as very overwhelming. As after all, we have a lot of archetypes
Yes.
in rules as written.
So when it comes to homebrewing an archetype, it's a bit tricky because like when do you decide to make something an archetype versus just making it another class?
Mhm.
Or another subclass. It has to be something that is big enough that it can be like its own thing, but small enough that it's not its own thing.
Yeah, I think my general rule of thumb when approaching archetypes as a homebrew is if I can write 4 feats per like class feat level, at that point I'm filling such a niche that it could probably be a broader class and it'll be fine.
I actually have a lot of interesting math on them real quick on let me see if I can find it. I keep track of all of my build logs real quick and I want to see if I can pull up my archetypes because I did a whole like mathematical thing with archetypes.
Oh boy.
Um
I can't wait to hear this breakdown.
I do so much math when I make my homebrew. Um because a lot of people question why I do the things I do and I want to have answers for them.
Yeah, I just throw
So
everything onto paper. I'm just like, you know what? This works. And if people don't like it, it was fun.
yes. So I'm about to send you a picture of what this is real quick. Of what I did when I first started making archetypes.
Okay, I'm gonna add this to the stream as soon as so
Yeah.
everyone at home can see it.
And this is like just a rough thing I made to kind of get me an idea of how big archetypes are.
Oh boy. Okay, chat. Wait until you see this. This is so I would say deep with numbers. Yeah, here we go.
It's not as complicated as it looks. It's just
Oh, I'm sure there's a system,
yeah.
don't get me wrong.
Yeah. It's a lot
This
of
is
numbers.
this is like looking at the Thego table with no nat. It's just like, wow.
So what I did is I took every archetype that was available at the time when I started making archetypes, and I'm sure someone can like do the math to figure out when this happened. With the release schedule as it is, could probably find like a 2-month window when there wasn't any other archetypes in these. But I took them all and I listed them all out, and then I listed every feat they got at every level from the archetype. And there's a little S if it's a skill feat. And then at the right to the left of the archetype's name, I put the total number they got. And then I added all those numbers together and divided it by the number of archetypes to find the average amount of feats every archetype had. And the average was 8.686.
Interesting.
So an average archetype has about 8 to 9 feats.
So you would say that the kind of when you exceed, I would say my rough number would be 12. When you start exceeding this number, then are you what is kind of your like thought process if you're like where you're approaching something, you're like, this is I'm exceeding this number. What do you kind of
Um,
do?
I wouldn't say that number is 12 because there if you're looking through, you see like there's at least I think 6 or 7 archetypes that have 12 or more. I think the highest one is 16.
Okay, so I think hold on, I want to clarify something a little bit then.
Yes.
Just kind of a lot of these is
Mhm.
something that Paizo did very intentionally, which
Yeah.
was have the um, archetype give bonus feats, as is in drawing from a original like class. You know, like assassin gets
Yes.
the poison weapon, they get sneak attacker from rogue. They kind of like
Yeah.
balance this kind of system. When I say 12 fates, I mean 12
U
completely
unique
original,
feats.
no other like add in anything else kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, geez, the martial artist has 20. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
would s yeah.
Because they just basically ported all of the non-key stuff from Monk
Yeah.
into the
In
martial
fact,
artist.
if you add my homebrew, they have more than that because I made monk feats that go into the martial artists. Da, 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 da. Yeah, I would say that, like, if what you're thinking of consists of somewhere between the ballpark of 5 to 10 feet is probably an archetype. If you can come up with like 20 feet, then it's a class. If you can only come up with 12, I don't think it's quite a class yet either. I would just pick the best ones and put them into the archetype. Um, a class just needs so many feats. So
Yeah.
many feats.
Well, I mean,
Like if
unless
you
you're
cannot,
the
yeah.
Oracle, then you only need a little bit amount of feats.
Oh, I bet if I count these, I bet the Oracle has a lot of feats.
Uh,
Um,
I think Oracle, relatively to everyone else, has
yeah,
little
relative
amount
to
of.
everything else, but compared
Yes.
to an archetype,
Compared to archetypes, it definitely has more. Yes, I
'cause
will admit that.
they have at least 2 at every level,
Mhm.
and that's a minimum of 20, but I imagine that they have more than 2 at every level.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you got me here. You're right.
Yeah, I imagine an Oracle has somewhere between 40 and 50 feet, if I would just ballpark it.
I would say it's about. Yeah, that's about probably right. Um, so I think
Passes
what's
are so hard to make in Pathfinder.
classes are difficult. I will admit that. I have definitely tried my fair share of tackling classes. I've done two, and
Mhm.
they are long-winded
Yes.
projects.
Yes, it is not something that you can do in one sitting.
I probably wouldn't recommend somebody new who is getting into homebrew to start off with a class only because it is so like difficult. However,
Yeah.
if you are confident in your writing, I mean, by all means, Pathfinder Infinite is right there. I would just suggest maybe talking to somebody who knows the game very, very well and
Post it
seeing what they
on
think.
Reddit. Post it on
Yeah,
and
post it on
like
Reddit.
there's a Reddit like the Reddit creation. One time we get the Pathfinder 2e creations where you can just post things there and people will like give you feedback. And just like post it like, hey, I'm new at this. What do you think? And people are most of the time pretty constructive. It is Reddit, so occasionally you get someone yelling at you that what you did completely breaks the game. But you know, it's the internet.
Yeah.
Um, you just have to learn how to, kind of like push those to the side, see if there's anything constructive in what they're saying, and take it. If not, you can just, kind of ignore it.
So I think
um,
okay, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, no, no. I was just rambling. You can go on.
So I think what's also really interesting about like archetypes specifically is how they can fit a niche without specifically having to design a whole class around that niche. For
Yes.
instance, the dandy can cover social
Mhm.
based like combats. Yeah, social combats essentially. And but like the assassin is this very like thought out, meticulous. It costs you 3 actions to like study a target. I think that's I think they have this such a great way of like filling in this like little void that a class can't really do. Like you could throw unexpected sharpshooter and gunslinger. It probably would feel weird.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some combinations that work better than others. Um, it's interesting because like it really helps flesh out lots of things when you're imagining uh actual characters from shows, because characters from shows are never as one dimensional as a single class most of the time.
Mhm.
Um, like that's just like, are you familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Oh, you missed last stream where I didn't shut up about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
So what class do you think Aang would be?
Aang. Okay, so if I had to choose, would probably be a druid base. But I
Interesting.
think you're definitely right. I either need some multi-classic or some archetypes because I
Yeah.
cannot replicate everything that like a 4 elements at monk can do. kind of way.
Exactly. Yeah. Like even like the lesser characters, like Sora, for example. I would say that she's some kind of elementalist based class, but she also probably has some medic in there.
Oh yeah, I think what's really cool about the archetype system specifically for Tui is because we have this like I would call it drop in drop out kind of feats structure of you can kind of like throw either a class feat or an archetype feat, or if your gem's really nice, you have free archetypes, so you don't have to worry about it. You
Yeah.
you kind of just like could play with this theme. I think that's kind of like the core part of archetypes is like
Yes.
they tackle a theme.
Yes. And it allows you to do my favorite thing that you can do in TTRPGs, which is build a Gish, which is very hard to do otherwise. I guess Magus is a Gish, but I want more spells than just I
Yeah,
want more than 4 spells a day.
yeah, I definitely completely agree with you on that. Okay,
Bard champion for life.
Bar Champion's a fun one. I particularly like doing Magus Wizard, only because just more spell
Yeah.
strike.
Hmm.
Okay, so from chat, that's exactly the first thing I homebrewed when I started playing TTRPGs, an entire class. Of course, it sucked, but it was fun to make. I think it's kind of like the core of what we like. We do this because you and we write because it's fun, not because we're making like billions of dollars off of it. We're the richest homebrewers on
Yeah.
the earth.
Yeah, the biggest advice I give you is just don't be afraid to fail. You're going to make lots of mistakes. I still make lots of mistakes whenever I push my homebrew. I've been making homebrew every day for over a year. I still make lots of mistakes. I submitted into that contest, the superstar contest. I didn't win. That was my first time making creatures, but like I forgot to put a saving throw on one of the monsters. I'd had DC with no number. You're gonna make mistakes, and like the mistakes will get easier and easier as you go through. Like I'm most of my mistakes nowadays are mostly like typo mistakes, like that one. But
Yeah.
don't be afraid if you might make some like big mistake earlier about like the numbering system or like giving a character the ability to fly at level 1 or something, and like just be open to feedback.
Yes,
Um,
definitely. I
but
think it.
don't at the same time don't let the feedback control you. It's a
Yeah,
really fine line to walk.
yeah. I think though, like when I was definitely getting started, without the help of my, I would call my core friends of like TTRPG homebrew writers, I probably would not be getting this far in like the writing like business as I did now, only because I failed on my face so many times. Like I
Yes.
wrote a samurai archetype as like one of my first things I ever written, and it was like almost a direct one-to-one port from first edition, and I kid you not, like 3-page summary back of every single feat broken down into this doesn't exist in TUI anymore. This doesn't work. Why'd you give a +5 bonus here? You didn't specify circumstance or status. And I was just like, oh my god.
What do you mean it's targeting touch AC?
Oh yeah, touch AC. Yeah, that's back now. I make it a thing. It's your AC minus I don't know, your dex
Oh,
bone. I
you
don't
you
remember even
homebrewed
touch.
touch AC back into your games.
Oh
That's
yeah,
funny.
obviously.
I,
That and Thaco.
oh, Thaco. I like my
Uh
solution to Thaco, which is just -20 to all attacks, -20 to all AC.
Oh yeah, that's what I run with now. Um okay, so kind of centering back to archetypes a little bit more. I think when I approach archetypes, I think about a specific character in mind. Meaning,
Mhm.
I I watch a lot of TV. It
Oh, I
is
do the same thing.
yeah, I watch TV while I write, and so I have binged a lot of TV shows. Um, I
Yep. When I
often
was doing the weapons, I was like the scythe. I looked at other I went to YouTube and looked up like anime scythe and saw what the coolest things people were doing with scythes were. Like, when it's spoiler alert for my relics, one of them is acid. And I was like, what when I think of acid, like the first anime character comes to mind is like the My Hero Academia. There's a girl in there who's purple and she has acid. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Let's see if I can get any inspiration from her.
oh yeah, definitely. I think that kind of when we kind of see a character, we can kind of also then break them down in terms of mechanics. But I definitely come into whenever I'm handed like a new project or I'm coming up on my own is what can Darth Vader do that isn't already written in the, you know, what can John Wick do that isn't already pre-written? And that's kind of what I use as my base of I want to fill this particular niche of I want to do a shapeshifter or this kind of build.
I'm gonna deviate just for a second because someone posted a really good comment in the chat, asking the difference between homebrew and house rules.
Oh boy. Okay. How about you take this first, so I can drink, and then
So
you.
yes, yes. So for me, the difference between homebrew and house rules is homebrew is anything, and this is my opinion. This will come back to house rules in a second.
Mhm.
Homebrew is anything that modifies the game itself, the rules of the game, whereas a house rule is a rule that is for the players sitting at the table, um, such as no texting while playing at the game. And one house rule could be like them just saying that my homebrew rules are house rules because they can do whatever they want sometimes. um, yeah, and there isn't a real distinction between them. That's how I would differentiate it. Is the house rule would be a rule that's implemented upon the players, whereas a homebrew would be a rule that's implemented upon the characters.
Interesting. Okay, so I think kind of bouncing off of this kind of I think my distinction for homebrew and house rules is something that's agreed upon. Something homebrew is something that is kind of given. So a house rule could be no elves in my setting. That's a house rule. That's not homebrew. That's just a let's say you're playing post Lord of the Rings where all the elves have left Middle Earth. That's a agreed upon social contract that you signed by playing in the game. Homebrew is I have Gandalf over here, and I give Gandalf a +3 striking major longsword, and he can summon a Taras with just the sword. Like that's a homebrew.
Interesting.
I think
I don't disagree with you. I think you're
Mhm.
right. I'm just trying to
I think
think of
though
it's me trying to elegantly make it like I do homebrew. It's all right. There's no right or wrong answers to what anything is really. The definition of words change constantly, and it's whatever works for you. I know that's a terrible answer, not what you're looking for. But sitting here trying to define a word, as fun as it is, doesn't actually get us anywhere because at the end of the day, what we call it matters nothing.
Yeah, I think definitely. Like we talked about earlier in this stream, our the difference between homebrew and third party is such like a thin veil
Yeah.
that, it could what applies to one could easily apply to the other.
Yeah. Like if one person makes their first homebrew ever for the first time, and I say it and I'm like, I like this. I implement it in my game. I'm implementing your third party content into my game.
And I think the same thing goes for house rules is
Mhm.
that this is just something that we kind of all like agree upon in terms of the mechanics of the game or
Yeah.
even, a social boundary. I think also kind of an important part about homebrewing is knowing the boundaries of what you're writing in. That certain things are, I would say, should be avoided. Certain, like, I would say, if you're drawing upon a certain culture, writing about that culture in a, I guess, negative light. I don't exactly know how. I'm not gonna stay on this point for very long, but like understanding the social construct of what you're writing in. I guess, like, don't write. Let's say you're in Galarian. Uh, don't write that all the orcs are then, magically corrupted and, twisted, and because that kind of goes in the face of the design of Galarian. And I don't know, I just think like if that's what your players all agree upon, that's the story you want to tell, great, go for it. But I think definitely knowing the boundaries of all the players so you don't like, cross a line or a veil is kind of like an important part of doing the homebrew and house ruling. Sorry for the tangent.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, and like yeah, it all just comes down to what the experience you are. And at the end of the day, like homebrew or house rules, they're both just things that are implemented into affect the game or the game time that you're with. Um, just to kind of sum it all up into one thing. But yeah, yeah, and
But
respect what you're doing, respect your players, don't and yeah, if you're gonna implement anything that's might be controversial, check in with people, see how they're doing. Don't uh
don't
if you watch
blindside
any
them.
yeah, if you watch any Crit Crab, try to avoid showing up on his show.
um, so kind of moving on from the whole archetypes bit, let's talk about what we just said was one of the hardest parts about writing for TUI, classes.
Yes.
So, have
That's
you
fantastic.
written any classes that you can talk about?
I have written a class, and I can't talk about it too much, but it is
Mhm.
the Warlock class, and sometime this year, in the year 2020, I will be doing a Kickstarter with a book that
Yes,
will feature
time
the
travel
Warlock.
back to 2020. Release the book.
So 2022, I know time, I know years, dates. This year, it will be a Kickstarter for a book that will feature the Warlock. Now, like all of my homebrew, I want it to be for the people. So the Warlock will eventually be released to the public months after it is the books arrive. I don't know how long it will be. I think at least 2 months after the first book arrives at its destination will be the clock for when I release it to the public. But I definitely want to, give an incentive to people who want to support me by purchasing a book, so they get the first access, the first shot at playing with the Warlock. And it was a monster to design.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've written 2 classes, and oh my god. That's all. I think
Yes. It was
I
really tricky because I had to build this in secret while also releasing all my homebrew on schedule, so it didn't look like I was behind on anything.
oh yeah, I think that I think us as a kind of, public homebrewers, writers, that it's kind of hard to like here's my consistent, like daily post about, XYZ homebrew I've written, but then also like sit on our hands and like, oh, I can't talk about this one project
Yeah,
I'm really excited about.
it's really exciting. Yeah. Oh, Eldritch Blast. It's really cool.
uh so yeah, I when you're approaching writing a class, and we're gonna talk broadly here so we don't like,
Yes,
spoil too much about the
absolutely.
Warlock.
Hmm.
What was kind of the mentality going in it that, like for me, it's what can this do that no other class can't?
Yes, you need to make it unique in some way. It can't be another class. And the uniqueness doesn't have to be massive. Like, it just needs to have its own identity in a way. Uh, like the warlock and the witch, for example, people always say that they are very similar. But it's not necessarily like their numbers are similar. They have like the same amount of spells. They can both cast from the arcane spell book or whatever. Um, and the spells make up so much of the power limit of a caster that it's hard to deviate too far from that. Um, but what does make them different makes them very different, in my opinion. How they prepare spells, like a lot of the differentiation can be in the flavor and the feel of the class, not just the mechanics of it. Um, if you go back to the game Spirit Island, there are two spirits. One is a spirit of the ocean, another one is spirit of the rivers. Um, but they're very similar thematically, but they have very different mechanics that how they approach the situation of moving things around the board, and for what reason they do it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just thinking about like even classes that are even core, for instance, a champion and a cleric, both on paper look or sound very similar as
Yes.
they're both like, conduits for their deities. They like exemplify what their deities' tenets and beliefs are.
Yeah, they do it in very different ways though.
Yes, I think that's kind of like the fun part about writing classes is that you can draw inspiration from another class. Like
100%. Yeah.
barbarians definitely could draw on fighters and their ability to hit things. Now granted, you then I would recommend changing something around to kind of like give it a new take that no other class has. Like a champion has special reactions that no other class can really get their hands on. I don't think anyone can get their hands on, Retributive Strike without multiclassing.
No, the way to do it without multiclassing, and even with multiclassing, it requires at least 2 feats, and one of them I think is relatively high. I think 6th level is when you first
Yeah.
get the champion reaction. So you need at least champion dedication, and then at 6th level you can get champion reaction. And that also comes with all the negatives that comes with being a cleric or a champion, which are the anathemas, which aren't a massive deal, but definitely something you can't forget about.
Oh yeah, because I think what Tui has done, or at least even that's even paladins in 5e, is that your tenets are so important, and that's what
Yeah,
makes the paladin champion feel so different than a cleric or a divine sorcerer.
yeah, absolutely. Like, it's so cool that there are classes that have the divine spell list without needing to have the edicts and anathemas and the restrictions that come for clerics and things. That's why I think like a a divine like oracle is very different from a sorcerer or from
Oh
a
yeah.
cleric. Um, yeah,
Well,
it's
even in your distinction right there, like oracle and cleric are
mm,
generally the same. They're both full casters. They both, have access to like the divine spell school. They can both, if you really want your oracle to heal, you can definitely go
the healing
the
oracle.
life oracle.
Yeah,
And then, but I've played both, and they both feel so different from each other, even from like a role
absolutely.
play perspective.
Another big kudos to Pathfinder for making sorcerers and wizards actually feel different.
Yes. Oh my god. I love that they feel so mechanically different now. Because
Yes.
have you written any wizard thesis yet?
Oh, I have. Oh, let me go to it real quick. They're so cool.
Yes,
Um,
I really liked how they're tackled into it.
Absolutely. So I have 2 schools and 2 theses I made. I made the School of War and the School of Fundamentals, which one is about weapon expertises and stuff that you can gain. It basically kind of makes you like a war cleric, but for wizards in a
Mhm.
sense. It tackles it from a different direction. Like this one, it gives you like a free casting of mage armor every day at the highest level slot you can do. Um, which instead of giving you armor proficiency, and the fundamentalist is all about cantrip mastery. And the theses I did weapon singing and scribe masters, which is scrolls
Ooh.
and weapon attacks.
I think this
And
also kind of goes to show when it comes to classes in 2e that you can approach it with such because of what we talked about before with the restrictions of when we let's say even if we were to write a wizard thesis right now, we could both go, here's what hasn't been done yet. This would be really cool if we could do this kind of like feel to it. And so I like scrolls and wizards are something that is very important. You need scrolls to put in your spellbook.
mhm. Yeah, and like the big challenge of making the war wizard and the weapon singing wizard is I wanted this to feel different than playing a war cleric or playing a battle oracle. They need like a wizard doing martial stuff needs to feel different than a sorcerer doing martial stuff, and it needs to feel different than a cleric doing martial stuff. That needs to feel different than an oracle doing martial stuff, because they would all approach the idea of going into combat with weapons differently.
So what I think is also like this little like note I want to like tack on to the end of that is if you find yourself writing a subclass and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I wish this applied broader, that's when TUI really rewards you of you can then turn that subclass into a either class archetype or just straight up archetype.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment 100%. Like, I only had 4 things for this. I couldn't have made this into an archetype, and they were 4 very different things. But I also,
Mhm.
approached this from the kind of bottom up perspective, as I knew that I was making wizard archetypes, wizard schools at the time, so I approached it from that direction. And but there's nothing wrong with changing what you want and what a thing should be as you're making it. There were lots of times when I was making primal spells that I was like, I'm going to save this for later because this feels more like an arcane spell that might also just be a primal spell list also. And
Mhm.
I saved it for the arcane spell list one that I did. Or yeah, there's just lots of like what's another example? I made so many that they all blur together.
Oh yeah, I totally feel the sentiment of I've written so many things I can't jump between them all.
Most of the time I go in with the idea of the project in mind, and that's kind of one of the boxes I build in, and they're often voted on by my patrons, who like decide what my next project will be. They'll be like, every
Mhm.
now and then I post a poll like, hey, what do you want me to make next? And I'll list like 10 things. They're like, this one, and I'll be like, okay.
Oh yeah.
It actually kind of helps me when I have even a little bit of direction outside of my own. As at least in like what general direction to go in next, is it's just one less thing I need to think about when it comes to making a thing.
Oh yeah. I totally get that sentiment.
Yeah,
Um
it's kind of like the think of anything problem.
oh yeah. So to kind of build off of what we were talking about is that if you feel like something that can be expanded upon more, I think that TUI really lets you do it because of the way
Yes.
the feat system is structured. So if
Mhm.
you, let's say we had that scribe's wizard thesis, if we wanted to, we could probably go into the feats and probably write out like a ton more that like
Yeah,
specifically apply to this one thing.
absolutely. It's like and that it really different. Like it's hard to say how cool something is without comparing it to something else, as like just so as a base example, like because
Hmm.
it's kind of like nothing is anything without comparison, which is a weird sentiment, but nothing is anything without comparison. Like like food is not good if it's the only food that exists in the world, because like there's no bad food, it's just food. Um it's just if everything is just one thing. So that is all just to say, like, I'm going to bring 5e into this a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
If
go
you
ahead.
were um if you were to like compare, if you let's go back to the avatar thing at the same time. If you wanted to make avatar in 5e and you said let's make this a monk subclass, which they tried to do, and it is with mixed results of success, it's really hard to do that within their system, because every subclass only gets 4 features unique to that subclass. You have to encapsulate the idea of Aang the avatar with 4 features. What are the 4 things that you think Aang can do that best encapsulates what he's capable of? You only get 4.
Oh god. Access to all of the elements. Then you
Is
have to
that one thing, or
specifically
is that
break it
4
down into
things?
the 4. And
Yeah.
then yeah, but then he
And then all
specializes
the
in
unique things he
airbending.
can do with every single one of those elements is like, what? When do I stop? Does he get one earth attack, or does he have like 5 different earth attacks, 5 different wind attacks, 5 different the water attacks that he can all mix and match however he chooses? Like it is so like difficult to encapsulate all the features of a character into like only 4 options. Whereas in Pathfinder, if you were to make Aang would be his own class. Let's not like, even bounce
Oh
around that. He
yeah.
would have
Oh my
totally
god.
different
I
feats.
can't I I don't even think like
But
elementalists could even touch the
yeah,
level of like abilities certain characters in
yeah.
media have. I think most animes are thrown out the window the second you try to like replicate a lot. Now granted, some people are successful, Desert
Yeah.
Gaming being like a good example of that. But
I think
oh
anime
yeah.
is very good to look at for small things. Trying to perfectly copy something from anime, I don't think is going to work. But if you want to look at like what's a really cool way that you can use fire to make something unique, you can just look up like 10 different fire users in anime, and like he made a fire tornado. That's
That's
cool. Let's
cool.
turn that into a spell. And then, yeah, which is what I did for the acid relic, where it's like, oh, she does that little acid slidey thing. I'm gonna make acid slide one of the features of this relic. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers.
Oh yeah, no. We
Um,
love spoilers here. But I think what's also this really cool approach about that like mentality is there isn't just, this one acid character in anime or even just in media in general. Because like when you said acid, I'm immediately thinking Reptile from Mortal Kombat. And he has these acid bubbles. He
yeah.
could do like a bunch of acid based melee
hmm
attacks. And I think
hmm
what's so nice is if you have the chance to work on a homebrew team, do it. I know this is a little
Yes.
bit off topic of what we're doing, but there are going to be creative disputes. Don't get me wrong. There always is. People think differently. It's just a fact of life. But
Which is the biggest benefit of having a group.
yes, is that you approach it with that anime in mind. I'm going to approach it with this Mortal Kombat in mind. And like together, that's how we build out this giant, I think that's kind of what makes like Paizo like book so great is that you don't have it's just like it's not three people writing it all. It's a team of like editors and writers, and we all like kind of come in with this idea and we broaden it out from there. I just think that's like so cool.
Absolutely. Like I have a degree in, and I've done a lot of professional work in theaters, and theaters is all about creative collaboration, because we have to get a director, a costume designer, a set designer, a lighting designer, a movement director, a stage combat director, a dance choreographer, all on the same page to accomplish the same vision, but they all approach it from a very different angle, and it adds to the creative vision to create something that no one of those persons could have created together.
Oh yeah, I think that's like I mean, we'll obviously eventually have to end this like segment, but I think writing, I think having people to bounce off of, and I think this is why like Reddit and Twitter are so great sometimes, is
Yeah.
because with the grandiose power of the internet, we all kind of can bounce these ideas off of each other, and it's just so much fun when you know I get like sometimes I have gone to a prophet sometimes. I'm just like, man, I don't know shoot about golems. And I like, here's my idea, and immediately like I was getting responses like, oh, this is a really cool thing. What if you just tried this? Or like here's another way to approach this. And then the golems came out amazing. I was so proud of the way they looked.
Are you gonna have to send me the final product?
When I finish it all, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I got really sidetracked.
That's
A
okay.
lot of my projects have gotten started but never finished. I am trying to
Yeah.
finish up the Tal'Dorei stuff. I have just
I
I have so much.
I am most nervous about my homebrew when no one comments on them. And I post them in like 3 different places every day. And if I get no comments, I'm like, I don't know if this is good or
Mhm.
not. I don't know what other people think about this. I want to get more feedback on all the stuff I make, which is why I love posting them publicly. You do, open yourself to everyone's comments when you post them publicly, but you also get feedback. And if you're good at parsing out the good from the bad and being able to have a discussion with them critically about why they feel a certain way about things, you can get a lot of good information and learn a lot from public feedback.
So
But
kind of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
it's just trying to how maybe move on to the next thing, or if you have something more to add.
No. I was just thinking like how
Mhm.
just kind of relating it back to second edition of the way that the rules are kind of written right now
Yes.
is that collaboration really lets you like because we're not like you said before we're not limited to just 4 things. We have an entire
Yes.
10 levels of feats to play with,
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah.
before skill feats even like come into mind.
And you know what that also means?
What does
There's
that also mean?
always something to compare what you're making to. There's always something to compare it to. And the more comparisons you have, the more assurance you have that what you're making will fit within the system well, or will be balanced within the system. Um, like there are so many examples of how much damage a second level spell should do. that shouldn't be a thing that you mess up.
Immediately just recall all of the damaging spells. I'm just like, oh wait, hold on,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Yeah. Like if you're ever making something like always, I mean, if your objective is to make a piece of homebrew that is balanced within the system, and it doesn't have to be, but if that is your objective, then there's always comparison to be made. And one of the biggest assets of having multiple people in here is that they might think of something that you forgot to reference,
Mhm.
or to compare it to. And it's interesting because you said earlier in the stream that you've read the book multiple times cover to cover. I have never read any of the books cover to cover before.
I think cover to cover is a bit of an exaggeration. I've just read
Yeah,
a
like
lot of it that it's practically cover to cover. I will admit.
I have a
I
hard time
probably
sitting
have
down
not.
and reading a book.
Yeah, I don't think I've sat down and like read the
Yeah.
core rule book straight
Mhm.
through, but I have read the core rule book in separate chunks enough time that yeah, cover to cover is a bit of an exaggeration here, but I have read, classes section so many times just because I've referenced other stuff. Like I need to reference spells if I want to like make sure my current spell I'm writing is like balanced.
Yeah. Well, 100%. Like I haven't read the thing through reading the books. I've read it through referencing 100 different things on archives and this over and over again. I do own the books, by the way. I work ironically, I have a really hard time reading. Like I've ADHD makes it really hard for me to sit down and focus on
Oh yeah,
only a book at a time.
totally get it.
Ironically, I work at a bookstore. But yeah, I listen to audiobooks
Smart, smart. Yeah,
while working on Homebrew.
yeah. I just binge watch TV shows. So before we start, kind of going into our halfway midway break, I kind of want to answer a question that I saw in chat that I really want to talk about because I think me and you are gonna have some fun talking about this. Is how do you feel about homebrewing joke items based on puns into your game? I personally love it. I love doing
Oh,
them.
I do not. When I play a game, unless like everyone is down for it, I most of my games are not super mega serious.
Mhm.
They're more like brevity kind of things where it's like we're sitting down, the world is already stressful enough, let's have a fun game.
Mhm. Oh
And
yeah.
so I am more than happy to make joke items for the games. I don't often do it.
I think if
It's
the
really interesting, yeah.
I think definitely if the setting calls for it to be
Hmm.
very, very serious, then yes,
Yeah.
maybe joke items,
Yeah.
like one or two, if that's like a funny moment in that, like
Uh-huh.
serious time. It's like I kind of like point it to the "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" moment where Frank's in the limo and it's like this very serious moment and he reaches into his pocket. Can I give you an egg in this trying times? Like that's kind of like that's like a serious moment cut funny with
Yeah.
the like pulling out a weird item. So I definitely feel like if that is kind of what you're going for, then great, I'd do it. But personally, I love writing more like cartoony based, like I'm
Absolutely.
like Roger Rabbit. I could like pull out 50, items just from my back because I said I can. And,
Yeah. And honestly, like there are joke feats in Pathfinder 2e as is. Like the gunslinger jumping and shooting your gun to make yourself jump further. Like that's a joke.
oh, Black Powder Boost? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then like the eventual ability to do it like 5 times in a row simultaneously to like make yourself fly.
oh, yeah.
Like
I think, yeah, I totally get what you mean here. I think that's
oh,
what's really fun about writing it from like our end is that we as developers we kind of like we could make joke feats like that. I know I just turned in a certain project uh for a upcoming third party book that I can't I'm not sure if I can talk about it. I'm just going to say no. I can't.
yeah,
But
better shape than sorry.
yeah. But one of the feats I wrote was "Why do you look like my friend?" And that's the name of the feat. I'm not going to say what it does, but
Yeah.
it's this like I think adding a sense of humor to what you're doing makes it so much more fun. And I apply this to both, running games and, writing games is having a sense of humor about it if what you're doing calls for it makes that thing memorable. like writing an item called Flurry of Bows, and you give it to your
Yep.
monastic archer, they'll never forget that moment they
Oh
got
my god.
handed it.
My favorite joke item ever, and I wish I could be the one who took credit for this, but I'm not, is Griffith's Shadow Bag, the one who inspired me to start making stuff. It made an item called the seat belt. And what
Okay.
it is it's a belt that whenever you sit down, an invisible chair appears beneath you.
I love it. But I also think, like, you know, having these joke, because it also have to just be with items. I think also
Yeah.
joke
Oh,
monsters
for
at
sure.
times could be
Oh
equally
yeah.
hilarious.
But one time I was playing a game where you were invading like this witch's castle, and it was very inspired by Hansel and Gretel, and we were fighting like candy cane spiders.
Yeah, why not? I
Yeah,
think
it's great.
I think you mentioned this earlier, like the world is so dark, why not just add like a little humor to it? I think that's such a great like mentality when it comes to
Yeah.
like writing, because I think unexpected sharpshooter is probably one of the most memorable archetypes yet in 2E, only because it has some of the funniest like abilities in it.
God. Oh, I know you haven't played too much 5e, I don't think, but how
I've
there's
played
a
I've read enough 5e to know what I'm talking about.
have you ever read the homebrew, the pugilist?
No, but
I
now
might
I'm
be pronouncing that
interested.
wrong. Oh, it has the best name features I have ever seen in any homebrew ever, like consistently in one place.
I I think also I think
I'm gonna read some of them out to you real
okay,
quick.
yeah, I want to hear these.
Yeah, I'm opening up the document now. Um, so this is like the fisticuffs kind of fighter, kind of like a monk with no key, kind
Mhm.
of things. Uh, their subclasses are called fight clubs.
I
I'm just gonna
love it
scroll down real
already.
quick. Yeah, the fisticuffs, the haymaker. Some of them are just really rabble rouser, the feat. The school of hard knocks. Uh,
I love it.
the bloodhound bruiser. Uh, oh my god, they have like low blow attacks.
I think also just kind of centering it back a little bit. I think Paizo also kind of leans into it with certain feats just being so ridiculous. Like Bouncy Goblin is a level 1 feat
Oh,
where
no,
you
bouncy
physically
goblin.
turn into a cartoon character when you take fall damage as you like
It's the
swoosh and
only
then
goblin
extend.
heritage that matters.
Oh yeah, Unbreakable. Oh yeah, easily.
Um,
Or like even kneecap is a 5th level feat where you just aim for the knees and you cap a
oh my god, the cling one where you bite onto someone and just hold on.
yes, and I think this is what's so fun about working on
Goblin song.
this. Oh, Goblin Song is just great. I love using Goblin Song, but I think that they kind of lend themselves to if you just have fun with it. I think this is what kind of like before we go to break. This is kind of like what I really want to stress is that like the fun of it all is what really makes. I think me in particular, I'm going to assume you too, is that we have fun writing a lot of these, and that's why we come back to it all every time.
Yeah, yeah. I love writing it. But what I love even more is seeing other people react to it when I post it. I love seeing
Yes.
other people look at my homebrew and be like, "That's so cool!" I like the no nat reaction.
Oh yeah. I totally that I think what's nice is seeing somebody like view your post and then going, "Oh, I'm totally going to use that in my next game." I'm just like,
I love that. I love it so
"Yes."
much. I like every time someone like posts a thing, is like I think like someone posted the other day on my Reddit, and they were like, my next campaign, I'm just gonna give a free pass to all of your homebrew, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah, I mean one I already did that with you, so you're welcome.
thank,
uh
oh, thank you. I'm honored. I'm always
uh
honored every time that happens. It's like, oh, I'm contributing to the world.
well, I think like well, I've also gone off and based off some of my own stuff off of yours, i.e. Giantkin but I redid some of the mechanics around it for my own game. But I think that I remember when I released Champion Reborn, which you can find on Pathfinder Infinite, shameless plug. But I had somebody I remember I was feeling really, really down that day. Somebody tweeted their own homebrew based off of Champion Reborn. and they wrote
Yeah.
some of their own stuff off of it. I was just like, this is the most amazing feeling of just being like, yes, somebody saw it, they liked it, they wrote it.
Yeah. Let's go back to that real quick. How you said you made something off of mine for your own game.
Mhm.
Totally cool. By the way, if anyone ever wants to use my homebrew and like edit it for your own game, that's 100%. But like that stuff is made for the public to use however they wish. But yeah, it's super cool when someone like takes your work and is inspired by it. It's the best feeling in the world. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
I love making all my stuff public too because the thing that another thing that inspired me to do that is because I loved the fact that Paizo posted all their stuff as open source, and anyone could access it and look at it anytime. Coming from the world of 5e where you had to buy all books 3 times to play it.
yeah. Archives of Nethys is the truest god here.
I'm gonna make all my stuff for free, and if you want to, give back, I have a Patreon. If
Mhm.
not, it's okay. It's for free.
Oh yeah, I mean, if that's the mentality that you want to approach with as like a creator, that is
Mhm.
super okay. I mean,
Oh
obviously
yeah.
it's worked for your brand. You're very, like, I would say, well known, at least in the 2e and the designing sphere. But like, kind of circling back a little bit, is I used that giant kin, like I changed it to like a full ancestry belief
Yeah.
because I was running an NPC that was a giant kin Impr0phet, and I really liked the mechanics of it, and I was lucky enough to like I knew you, so I could DM you and just be like, hey, I took this. This is what I did. What do you think? And I mean,
No.
obviously, then we circle back to the whole working together bit was because you
Yeah.
then it's like the reason I wrote this was because of this, and then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's
The
cool that I
rock
could.
throwing problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For chat reference, real quick, I broke rock throw because I was so tired, and I was just like, I really want this to work,
The
and I
rock
really
throw was
want it
a
to be like
really
a
hard
breath
thing to
weapon.
make.
It's
It,
so
it, it was the
hard.
hardest part of that whole thing to make was the throwing rock, and it's so iconic for. It's one of the only consistent thing with giants is that they throw rocks, so you have to have rock throwing in there.
Yeah, and then you have to like balance. Well, is it like a
Is this a weapon? Is this a special attack? Is this
Is
like
it?
what is this? Is this a weapon? Then you have to consider everything that you can do with weapons in the game. Can you can
Oh
you
yeah.
sneak attack a rock? Sneak attack a rock?
Oh my god, imagine that character who specifically uses sneak attack with rocks. And so you just like David and Goliath kind of way of just like, you have your little sling, you throw back the rock, and it's just like I dealt 56 sneak attack damage. Ha!
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah.
think
So
that yeah, sorry, go ahead, please.
yeah, we both keep talking at the same time. It's
Yeah, I
great.
know.
Yeah. I think this is a good place to stop for a break.
Yeah,
You have something
I
else
think
to
so
add?
that as well. So thank you everyone. Come back. We have so much more to talk about. There is so much to do with 2E, and I will I just want to give out one quick shout out to our sponsors, World Anvil, one more time. It's an amazing product. I love using them. Uh Seriously, I cannot check them out. Oh my god, seriously, check it out. I could totally talk, guys. I promise. uh so yeah, I will see you guys later, right after the break.
Hello.
I was on mute and we're back. Yes,
We're
of
back.
course. Sorry, I'm trying out this new software that lets me mess with audio sources a little bit better, so I don't have to
It's okay.
pull
I
everything.
forgive you.
And I know I have a quick button and it didn't quick mute myself. But yes, welcome. We're back with Impr0phet still. We still got tons more to talk about with Homebrew, and the quick shout out to World Anvil once again. We're so amazing. I'll talk about them more at the end of the stream, but I think we had this really cool question in chat that we're both like really eager to talk about. Is they want to know about our playtesting process, especially for big productions like Classes. So,
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
you go first, so I can.
Okay. For most of my stuff, it doesn't get any actual real play testing because for a couple of reasons. One, it's only me doing this. I don't have a production team to work with. Um, and I post things so frequently and so much. I make up for that by doubling down on the research and comparison to other things to make sure that it is balanced with other things that already exist. So if you're making a damaging second level spell, for example, again, you can just compare it to other second level damaging spells to kind of get the idea of what ballpark or numbers you're going wrong. And then I post it to the public, and the public tells me that I'm wrong and how to fix it. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't, depending on what evidence they bring to support the fact that I am wrong.
Oh
But for
yeah.
big things, like the Warlock class, for example, that's coming out in my next book, pay attention. I do plan on having different levels of playtest at different levels for the Warlock. Probably at least I want to do 2 major stress tests at each level. To see what the potential highs and lows of the class can be.
Yeah, I think at certain point it just becomes so muscle memory for us that we can look at something and go, "Oh, that feels slightly wrong. This feels like, like there's something more that could be added, or if we see something that's too much, here's something that can take away but keep the theme of it." What do you think?
We are also outliers.
Oh yeah.
'Cause we are outliers who make so much homebrew.
Oh
But
yeah.
when it comes to like making it for a home game, I would say just be open and honest with your player, and I would start with making it a little bit weaker than you think it ought to be, and then just seeing how it goes and being open with your player, like, hey, this may change in the future. And just be open and honest about what you're seeing with the item. Like, this feels too powerful. How do you think we can bring this down, and have it be a cooperative experience? I think will work better than like laying down the law. No one likes getting their items nerfed, but if you're talking with the player about it, at least they can have some say in how the item might need to get nerfed in the future. Or another option would be to just make everything else around them stronger, which is harder to do in second edition because
I
of how
will
tight the
say
map
it's
is.
harder. Yeah,
In
I
fifth edition, you just make everything stronger around the characters. Nothing matters.
yeah, just throw it out the door.
There's no
Yeah,
CR that actually works in fifth edition anyway.
I think you're definitely right. As much as it sucks telling your player, "Hey, this feels too strong," having that like back and forth of here's what we can do. But I definitely agree with this sentiment of
Yeah.
start weak and then you can always make it stronger. It's
Yeah. I
more
would love it
difficult
when you
to
make
go.
things stronger.
Yeah, exactly. It's so difficult, I think, to go from really, really strong to really, really weak. Because
Which is
at
why
certain
Paizo's
point,
playtest classes are always so weak when they first come out.
oh yeah, Magus when it originally dropped was, I won't say but it was definitely rough around the edges. And so was a lot of playtests. Like Psychic right now, which is currently in playtest, I can guarantee you is so much weaker compared to whatever the final product looks like right now.
Yeah. And like someone is saying that they've gotten criticism about not being able to playtest. Like, you're a person. You're not a production team. You don't. It is unrealistic to playtest everything like
Oh yeah.
100 times to see if it's balanced. We're not Paizo. Of course, what you're gonna make might not be balanced when you're starting out at homebrew, but that's okay. That's how you learn. By making things that aren't balanced and eventually learning how to balance things. And it's just part of the process of like no one knows how to do anything until they do. And that's just a sentiment for everything in life. No one knows anything until they do know something. Um, and like just you have to, if you're going into something, you need to be aware that when you're first jumping in, you're at level 0 character in this thing that you're doing. And you need to learn how to learn the ropes of how to balance things and learning sometimes without playtesting.
Oh
If it's
yeah.
like it would be unrealistic for me to playtest all the material I put out. It would require like a team of at least 6 people.
Yeah, and I think kind of if I could just bounce on that a little bit, I think the best way you can kind of, I wouldn't say avoid the criticism because there's always going to be, have you play tested this yet? That's always a fair question to ask.
Yeah.
But the more you read, the more I don't want to say study because that kind of gives it like a very like formal look to what we do. More you kind of reference Paizo stuff or any TTRPG stuff, what you're homebrewing, the more it will kind of start to coalesce. I think that's kind of the best way of putting it. Of you kind of start getting used to it a little bit more, and seriously just reaching out to the Reddit, reaching out to the subreddit, reaching out to Twitter is your best way of sometimes playtesting it. Kind of just getting feedback, I think, is the equivalent of, have you playtested yet? Have you gotten criticism from anybody yet? You know, what have you done to, if somebody said, hey, this is overpowered, have you playtested this in real game? And you go, no, I haven't. Then perhaps if they're really, really nice, they can go, well, here's another way of like approaching this item. You know, here's another way of, you know, I like kind of like a keto style of redirecting the energy, so you're not kind of getting discouraged from writing.
And oftentimes people will have the right idea but give you the wrong feedback. Like they would say, this feels weak, increase the damage. Well, maybe they'll probably be right that it feels weak, but maybe increasing the damage isn't the right way to fix it.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you, let's say me and you are writing a barbarian instinct, if we say this is weak, let's increase the damage, that might work in some cases. But if we were writing a barbarian feat, then, you know, maybe just giving it like an ability to stride right before whatever the big action is, that's how it makes it feel strong.
Yeah. Yeah, like numbers always make things better, but not always be in the way that makes it more fun. Numbers are better, they're not always fun. Like +1 to damage is good, but it's boring.
Oh yeah, I mean, what would you rather have? Something absolutely crazy, or, you know, here's by a +3 longsword that gives me 3 bonus damage on my attack.
I want the hammer that casts fireball on itself every time I crit.
Yes. If that was an oh yeah,
that is an item.
Yes, even better.
I think it's called like the sky hammer. So it's the level 20 weapon.
Oh my god. Okay, even. Thank you, Paizo. Oh yeah, see, this is like what I mean. It's so much fun to do, like, to approach it with that like mindset of, if something feels weak, you could always just make it a little stronger. Of, you know, saying, you know, I want a hammer that casts fireball. Well, those are two like very opposite kind of ways of, one's a martial, one's a spellcasting thing. But like you just described, it does it on a crit. You add like this, and that's what makes it strong, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like innately I strike and then I cast fireball.
Yeah, like, you don't want to have to choose between hitting with your hammer or casting a spell with your hammer. Because if you're casting your spell with your hammer, you're not hitting someone with your cool hammer.
Oh yeah. Would you say that TUI has kind of lended itself with the ability to have 4 degrees of success, made your homebrew a little easier or harder to write for? Because of, let's say we're having an item that casts fireball when you hit it. If we were doing something with like degrees of success, what does that kind of approach look like when you distinct between a, you know, critical failure and a success? I'm hoping I worded that correctly.
I'm trying to understand what you just asked me.
Okay, so let's say we have a spell, right? So a lot of spells in TUI require 1 of 4 degrees of success. You know, crit, success, fail, critical fail. So let's say something that would, Ray of Sickness makes you sickened. We just want them to be sickened. How do you kind of balance this of, well, this feels too strong for a failure, but this feels great for a crit fail? I'm sorry.
I understand your question. You're like how do you balance the different degrees of success? Kind of. I love the implementation. The implementation. This is the word I invented right now of the degrees of success. I love it so much. I love playing with it. I love homebrewing for it. It gives you just more. The more like knobs you have to modify things, the better you can balance something. And the more options you have, and having 4 degrees of success adds a lot of options, because you can have there's insta kill effects that only happened on like a critical failure, or
Oh
like
yeah.
and like there are lots of cool things that you can do that you just couldn't do before. And the way you balance is the way you balance everything else. You compare it to other things that have 4 degrees of success and see what is and isn't appropriate at each one. Um, and you try to do your best for things. You comparison shop. You
Mhm. But yeah, I mean that just like made something spark in my mind that writing homebrew is kind of like window shopping. We look at
absolutely.
what everybody else has, and then we go, okay, that seems something reasonable, and then we, obviously go out from there. But oh yeah, I think that's such a good analogy. I'm kind of mad that I didn't think of it earlier.
It absolutely is window shopping. And sometimes you might find two things that do really similar things but have completely different wordings, and you get to kind of pick which one you think is best for you.
Yeah, and I think that if you're not, if you don't have like a team of editors currently at the ready of,
Yeah,
to check whatever you have, I think the
most of
best
the time they
editing.
have different wordings things for the same thing is because they're trying to fit it on a page.
Yeah, I think it's also something that's kind of important is to understand what you're trying to do is sometimes more important than, the words on the page because a lot there's like rules as written, but then there's also rules as intended.
Yeah.
And I think that because you're not limited to, I'm stuck between this many pages, I can't go over this many pages, or or I've underwritten this many pages.
Yeah.
I
It's really interesting because I'm looking at relics right now,
Mhm.
and no relics have any 4 degrees of success. And I imagine the reason is because they're trying to fit it onto as small as pages as
Yeah,
possible.
I mean, relics are what? It's like 4 pages maybe in the Game
And there's
Master's
so
Guide.
many. There's like 10 or 15 relics or something.
Oh wait, no, sorry, that's right. I was thinking artifacts. Sorry, yeah. Relics are a little bit wide,
Relics are
but
the things that
yes.
level with you. Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I
No,
can
you're good.
remember things.
I confuse relics and artifacts like name wise all the time. I am nefarious for never knowing the name of anything, but I can tell you exactly what it is and what it does. I don't know the names of any characters in any of my D&D campaigns,
Oh
except for like
yeah.
the main party,
uh
and sometimes I mess those up.
yeah, you
It's just so
person
funny because we were in like one of the final bosses against a boss that we were tracking down for like, the whole campaign, and I forgot his name in the middle of the fight. I'm awful with names and with like names of I see so many every single day, and I also work retail, so like I meet 100 people every day. You just kind of learn how to like like learn what to learn and what not to learn, and like the information is so much more important than the name itself. So I compartmentalize the information and drop off the names of everything.
Oh, I totally get that. So kind of just to transition us a little bit into as kind of reaching the
Yes.
end point ish. What is kind of our big send off advice that we would give to new people? Particular, we've talked a lot about what to do in various scenarios. What's kind of like let's talk a little bit broader of somebody who's just trying to get into writing for the system. They
Yeah.
don't have a lot of experience like beyond just playing it.
Yeah. So in terms of writing for the system, like that's interesting. All right. It all depends on your goal. If your goal is like I want to write for Paizo, then what you need to do is you need to learn how to write like Paizo. Paizo's not gonna hire someone who's never read one of their books, who's doesn't know how their writing style matches. So if that's your goal, then study Paizo's writing. And yes, I'm even going to put the word studying in there.
Mhm.
It's not a fun word, but you gotta put effort into the goals that you want. If your goal is to do that, then I mean that I would love to work at Paizo. But I'm not saying I'm doing this with the intention of getting a job for Paizo, because this would be the longest-winded way to do it possible for me here in Public Humber. um, but yeah, just study it, and be ready to mess up and fail a lot, and don't be afraid to mess up and fail, and show other people what you're making, and get feedback and learn how to deal with feedback. Because if you're going to strive for a life as a creator or maker of any degree, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. You're gonna get a lot of feedback. A lot of it will be negative. Um, and I totally think it is worth doing, and it can bring a lot of value to your life, being a creator of things, being a maker, and if you do end up like sharing it, then you are adding to the world, and you're adding to this hobby that we all love. And I truly appreciate everyone who does contribute to that.
Hmm. I think kind of like building off of that, seriously, like post
Mm.
everything.
Yep.
Because there's a no better, if you're specifically trying to get in the goal of writing for Paizo or writing for another third party, let's say Legendary Games, Rogue Genius, just to name a few, having your writing just be out there and available is a great way. I'm not saying also don't like put some stuff up behind a paywall if you really want
Oh
to. If you
yeah.
want to like put stuff on Pathfinder Infinite, totally put your value and worth on there. Like my pricing system is gonna be probably different than probably I saw Dustin Knight earlier in the chat, but also like Elder Dream Games. Like we all kind of like value our work at different levels. Like clearly yours is if you support what I do, follow me on Patreon, but my stuff is available. It's free. Like that's
Yes.
totally different than like how I probably will approach certain projects. Like Champion Reborn is something that's paywalled, but that's because that's something I put a lot of time, effort, and I wanted it to be on Pathfinder Infinite specifically.
And not everyone is in a luxury that I
Hmm.
have of being able to spend this much time doing something that does not contribute to my finances in a meaningful way. I have a full-time management job at a bookstore. Not everyone that has that.
Yeah, and I just think that another great bit of advice, if I could give it to everyone, is just start talking with other creators. A
Mhm.
lot of, from what I've noticed, is a lot of us creators love talking about the stuff we write about, or just about broader stuff, clearly. And so, like, reaching out to people on Twitter, on Reddit, asking maybe a freelancer of what they did when they wrote X, Y, and Z. I I think the greatest part about doing this, like in particular, is we all have like this collective passion. We don't shut up. That's the other thing.
It's true. It's true. We love to talk. We love to talk to each other. We love to bounce ideas off of each other. We love just like, talking about the game itself and like the fun features. Like there's a joke with people who follow me on different things that I hate the spell acid splash. I will
Okay.
talk forever about acid splash, but I'm not going to here.
Oh yeah, I mean, we can have this debate off stream if you really need to go down to it.
No, I'm fine. I don't actually hate it. It's just a funny quirk in the system I found.
Yeah, but I think that kind of build up connections is so amazing because you never know when somebody has a new project and they're like, oh, I know that one person and they wrote this thing and then they they'd be so good if they could help me here. Or you could sometimes get approached with bigger projects and because your work is out there, they have something to reference to going, I know they can do good work. Like I know if I was to approach Impr0phet right now with a new project, which I'm not because I don't have any new projects, sadly. But if I was, I know I could get consistent work out of it.
I'm
That was
reliable.
it. I don't have
Yeah,
any new
no,
projects. I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. It's good. Yeah, a benefit of hosting every day is that if people know that you can reliably make content.
But yeah, I think in this specific industry, connections are what kind of helps everything coalesce. And we're all nerds. We
Yeah.
all we wouldn't do what we do if we didn't like what we did.
Mhm. Yeah, I bet if you talk to all the freelancers who work at Paizo, I bet every one of them has a different story about how they became a freelancer for Paizo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've talked with a few on interviews, and they're so and even like the Paizo staff are super passionate about what they do. Like talking with Luis Loza, like I can see the passion behind like when he talks about the Lost Omens, and I think that's another core part about writing homebrew specifically is have passion for what you did, even if it's I say if it's like what you view as like a butt archetype, it's not that good. Just be passionate that you wrote something. Like that's just such a proud accomplishment that you took time, you sat, you researched, you wrote it, even if it falls flat on its face. I've had homebrew fall flat on its face. It's still something to be joyous of. You did a thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can you think of any other tips that you would probably give that we haven't covered? I know we've talked a lot this this particular stream.
Um, yeah. Write what you want to write. Just write what inspires you. Um, yeah. If you write what you love and you love what you write, then it's gonna be worth all the work that you put into it.
So I'm completely out of advice. I'll just be honest here. Um, so let me start turning the questions back to you a little bit. Where can people find you? What's some of your socials?
Yeah. I've never done this before.
I know, it's the
So
fun part. Self plug.
okay, self-plugging. So I am on Twitter. I post there every single day with Homebrew. I am also on Reddit, Pathfinder 2E Creations. I am also the other place I regularly post is No Nats Discord. Those are the three places I post every single day. Whenever I finish a project, I post in a lots of other places as well. So,
You can even
thank
find
you,
it.
thank you.
You could find Impr0phet over at the Deadly D8 server as well.
I am. I post my finished projects in their homebrew discussion, and I think it's self promotion as well. Yeah. If you do want to get noticed by any writers and work on projects, you do have to promote your stuff, as
Oh no.
awkward as it is sometimes.
uh,
Which is almost as much work as actually making the homebrew as itself.
oh yeah, marketing is such a. We can get into this another stream, but marketing is
Yes.
a giant part of writing, or at least getting noticed. I think is something that's super valuable. Knowing how to just talk about your work is incredible, and because you provided this link earlier, and I really want to talk about it. Where can people find like a collection of all your work?
It's funny you say that. There is a scribe link that has all of my projects on it at any given time. I update this so regularly. It also has at the bottom of it all the early access stuff that the Patreons get to see before they become public, because they get posted there first. All my backlog work. As soon as I finish the project, it goes to the Patreon first. They get the first chance to see it, the first chance to give me feedback on it, and then once time passes, it eventually gets cycled up into the free homebrew section that is available for everyone. But the Patreon is just to support me. You get early access and you get some like voting things of what I get to do. But it is really like it is just if you want to support the free projects I'm making, because nothing on there will be permanently exclusive to everyone, to Patreons. But yeah.
Is this the right link?
Yes. Scribe link or a mess.
I'm making sure all the links are working. I think that's the Patreon one.
Yeah,
cool.
Making a lot of links working is how you make this collection right here, because this is a collection of like 40 links.
Yes. Writing in Scribe, as fun as it is, it's a lot of just basic HTML of link here, and make sure this goes to the right one. I have Scribe tooled up certain like documents with like a collection of links, and I'm just like, oh shoot, I recycled the same link twice. No, one of the buttons don't work.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as oh, sorry. Anything else you
No.
want to plug? You want to talk about
Uh,
regarding you? Uh,
yeah.
obviously talk
The
about the.
reason I wanted to plug in stuff like the Reddit channel as well, because you'll find me there, but you're also gonna find a lot of other cool people posting their own stuff. Um, and yeah, and you can see a lot of other of the community's homebrew, and you can post your own stuff homebrew there as well. And it's just a great community. Don't be afraid to even give your own feedback, even if you're still learning, because on things, because that's how you learn, by giving feedback, and sometimes that feedback is good, and they might respond when someone gives me feedback. I will generally always respond to it about what I think about that feedback, whether I like it or don't like it, and for what reasons. And like I give them other things to look at, like, have you thought about comparing it to this as well, because this is what I use for a comparison. um it is a pretty good community there of people making stuff, and it's ran by an actually a friend of mine. Do and make sure I get their name right. The Leshy Gardener or Orphane. I've talked to him on several occasions. I got his advice. I've given him advice. It's just a great community there.
Amazing. And thank you all for getting it this far into the stream. It's been an absolute blast to talk with Impr0phet. They're such an amazing person to talk with. If you haven't got the chance to talk with them on Twitter or Reddit, whatever, they're just so much fun. I thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast. I know not a lot of people love doing live streams or public, imaging stuff. So, I mean, seriously, it's been amazing. As for everyone else, thank you so much for watching. I want to give a quick shout out once again to World Anvil for sponsoring the stream. If you don't know what World Anvil is an online GM resource that is so incredible. I'm so happy that they're a part of the stream because they have made, well, even talk about homebrewing. They've made homebrewing so easy to put all of your work into one place, whether it's homebrewing for a certain setting, keeping track of your NPCs. They're just flat out incredible. I am so glad that they're here, and you haven't checked them out yet, please do. They absolutely kill it. And if you want to help the stream out, joining the Discord, where you can talk with me or other Deadly dd8 cast members, or even Impr0phet themselves, because they're on the server. We're all there, and if you want to support us a little bit more, our Deadly dd8 Patreon is a link down below. You can totally just come help out. I just realized that I had the socials all messed up, but you can find me at geekjames513 on Twitter, and I post my homebrew there a little less than normal now because I've been really busy. I'll admit it. This is one thing I'm not good at, is consistency. I'm kidding, but
It takes work.
it does. But yeah, seriously, thank you guys so much. I'm so glad to have had the stream, and I will see y'all the next one. Bye.